Hello and welcome back to Seaside Garage. I know this is not the Datsun. I was telling you in the previous video that I was going to work more intensively on the Datsun, but then I went to park it in the storage facility and then I saw the Princess and I want to work a bit on that also because this is so close to actually being roadworthy that maybe the reality is I just want to work on this. What I'm going to try to do today is to do a bit of assessment on the engine. I would like to check the clearance on the tappets. I'm not going to be able to adjust them if they are not correct. If they are not correct, I will have to figure out how to do that because it needs shims and I don't have any shims. I would also like to do a compression test just because it's fun and it will tell me a little bit about the condition of the engine and how worn it is. Then I would like to set up the carbs a bit better. Right now they have just been thrown on with a basic setup. I would like to balance them and fine-tune them a little bit. Also, I would like to check the timing, the dwell angle, and maybe some other things. But the first thing I'm going to do is to remove the spark plugs to check the compression. That will also make the engine easier to turn when I'm going to check the valve clearance. So off with the spark plugs. I'm just marking up the leads so I get them on the correct way because it runs better that way. I'm also going to disconnect this lead on the ignition coil to just avoid getting any sparks in the engine bay. So we got some pretty different colored spark plugs going on here, but I'm not too worried about it because I've been running it on a lot of choke, so I think that's the reason for the blackness. They could, new spark plugs would be nice though, because they are quite disgusting. I'm going to see if I have some. Now I want to take the compression on all 6 cylinders. What I'm going to do is to fit this, and then I'm going to crank the engine a couple of times with the throttle wide open, and then write all the numbers down. Number 1 reads, and I'm going for the PSI, 170 PSI. That sounds really healthy in my opinion. Let's check the next one. 150, slightly lower, but not alarmingly lower, but I don't want to see anything lower than that. The most important thing is, of course, compression needs to be high enough, but it's important that it's even on all cylinders. Number 3 reads 160, 170. One thing to bear in mind when doing stuff like this is that you are using your battery and you have to listen to the cranking speed. It needs to be pretty much the same on all 6 in this instance, because if the power gets low, the compression will also be lower. And maybe you could hear that it was rotating slightly slower this time. I'm just going to give it a bit of a break before trying again. And number 5 is reading 150. And let's check out the last one. Number 6 is reading 160. So here the results are. And as you can see, the highest is around 170 and the lowest is around 150. And you don't want to see more than 10% difference between the highest and the lowest. And this is actually on that edge and slightly above, but I'm not too worried about it, especially not in an old engine that hasn't run for a long time. And also the valve clearance could change stuff. If it's out of whack on this one, for instance, then it will most likely be closer to 170. So this is good, a pretty good result in my opinion. And the really good thing is that it is some high compression figures. Oh, and another thing, by the way, when you get a compression figure like this, then you can take a look at the numbers, and if for some reason that maybe number 3 and number 4 is extremely low compared to the other ones, then you know you might have a compression leak between those two cylinders. So this can actually tell you quite a lot, a compression test like this. If something is really wrong, then I would go ahead and do a leak down test on that cylinder which was really wrong. Then I could find out where the leak is going to. But I'm not worried about this, so I'm going to go on and take off the valve cover and check the valve clearance. And then it's time for the British car tools to come out. These bolts are fitted with O-rings. So that is with O-rings. So that is what is sealing these from leaks. When doing this, it is a good idea to have a new valve cover ready. Not valve cover gasket ready. I don't. But being that this car has been well looked after for not that long ago, I don't think we're going to see any issues from that. I could be wrong though. We'll see. It's a really nice looking valve cover, this one. I really like it. Big aluminum valve cover. The engine itself is not looking that great because it's iron and rusty iron. Of course I could go ahead and paint it, and I might do at one point. Oops. But not today. And to be honest, it wouldn't be a bad thing either to change the freeze plugs, because those got rust in them as well, and that is not ideal. So let's get this valve cover off. Come on, this is a really nice looking engine. I am slightly worried that this gasket is not going to seal afterwards, but we will have to just hope. And if not, I'm going to try to get another one. It shouldn't be too hard, but getting parts for this engine is not as easy as many other cars, at least. I'm pretty sure that this engine turns this way. I'm just going to check by turning it over because I'm not completely sure, but everything else wouldn't make sense in my head, but I want to turn it in the right direction. It's turning the other way. You can just see. This engine is actually turning the opposite direction than the wheels are. So I wasn't expecting that, but now I know. Now I'm going to disconnect the battery because I'm going to be having my fingers all around in here. So now I want to check the valves, and to do that I would like to check number 1 firstly. And to do that I need to make sure that number 12 is fully open. That means that this one is ready to be checked. Now we're going to turn it in the clockwise direction until this one is fully open. That's right there. I've just marked up all the exhaust valves to make it easier for me to remember. So this one we're going to check now is an exhaust valve. And an exhaust valve should be between 1/8 to, I don't work in inches, so I'm just going to say 0.46 to 0.51 millimeters. So I'm going to check for that now. 45 is going in easily. 50 is going in okay-ish. 0.55 is not coming in. Oh yes, it is. Let's try 0.60. But I say the clearance is around 0.55 right here. And it should be no more, and it was supposed to be 0.51 millimeters. So it's not too bad. Let's check the next one, which is number 7, when number 6 is fully open. And we're going to check number 7. And that's an inlet, which is supposed to be between 0.36 and 0.41. The 35 is not going in. It really should. 0.25 goes in just fine. 0.30 does not go in. These are actually tight. I need shims for this. I'm gonna check them all now and write them down and then take it back in a while. This feels like tuning a piano. Well, I have never tuned a piano, but I really like this kind of work where I really see the mechanical bits in full and get to turn them and measure and all that. I really like that. So that was fun. Unfortunately, it is completely wrong on pretty much all of the valves. I got some comments back in the day when I started the engine up for the first time about the tappiness. I also noticed that myself. I thought that one of the valves maybe was way out because it is tapping quite a lot and it do sound a bit like one valve. But as far as I can see on my measurement, it could be all of them really. They are way out of adjustment. All of them, they're pretty much all of them too big, the clearance, which makes sense considering it is noisy. There are not a lot of them that is too tight. Some of them are though. The tightness is the dangerous one because if a valve gets too tight, it will end up actually not closing that valve completely. And if a valve is slightly open when the combustion happens, the air will be forced out of the small gap and that would heat up the valve badly and end up burning one of the valves. So I don't think any of the valves are burned because the compression ratings are just fine, but I need to do something about that. And here comes the complicated bit. This engine is not an engine you can just adjust the valves on. There is no adjustment screw or anything like that. There are shims in the buckets underneath the cam. Those shims needs to be changed for the right size. So what is the right thing to do? But I'm not going to do that right now. But I really should take out each and every shims, measure those, compare them to the measurement that I made on the paper, and then by something called math that I don't know a lot about, I can figure out what kind of shim size that I need. But I'm not going to do that right now because I have no idea where I even are going to buy those shims. So I have to do some research. Hopefully I can find a big box of shims from some old closed down mechanic shop or something like that I can buy. And hopefully not too expensive because we'll see about that. And also I need a new gasket because it is completely dry. But this throws my plans completely out of whack because I was planning on setting the ignition timing and adjusting the carbs and all that. But it's not a good idea to do when the valve train is not working correctly because it will change the way the engine sucks and all that. So I need to do something about this. Because as you can see, and here is the paper of doom, the inlets are supposed to be between 0.36 and 0.41, and the exhaust is supposed to be between 0.46 and 0.51. And as you can see, the first exhaust is 0.60, that's too much. The first inlet is 0.45, that's too much. The next inlet is 0.30, that's too little, so that's a tight one. The next exhaust is 0.55, that's too much. The next exhaust is 0.60, that's too much. The next inlet is 0.40, but actually more like 0.45, because it was not a very tight fit for the 0.40, but I couldn't fit the 0.45, so it's maybe 0.43 or something. That's slightly too much. The next inlet is 0.25. That is really tight. Then the next exhaust is 0.50. That is actually within spec and just right on the edge, but it's within spec. The number 9 is 0.55, that's too much. The next inlet is 0.60, that's way too much and way too big. Kind of a weird one actually. And the next inlet is 0.30 and the last exhaust is 0.40. That's within spec as well, so we got 2 valves that are actually within spec on the 12 valves on the engine. So this means that I will have to take off the camshaft, but I won't do that before I find out where to get the shims, and ideally get a big box of assorted shims, but because you can get a lot of different ones. Actually, it states in the book the different kind of sizes that are available. And then I need to measure the clearance, take out the shim, and find out how much thicker the shim is supposed to be to take up the slack or add more clearance in. So I won't be doing more today because it doesn't make sense to do that now because I need to take off the chain and all that. And it will be a while. If I can get the shims, it will take a while to get them, that's for sure. So no more work on the engine of the Princess today. So it doesn't always go according to plan when working on old cars, and that is just part of the fun. So I'm not going to do much more work on the engine today, but I have noticed something. Maybe you can see it. The car is kind of slanted sideways. And as most of you know, I have been trying to fix the hydro gas suspension on this car with new piping that I made myself, and something tells me that I have a leak somewhere. I fixed another leak a while back that I didn't film, I think, because I forgot to use Teflon tapes on some of the connections, and some of you even commented about that. I didn't think it was necessary with these kinds of connections, but it seems to be. So I fixed a couple of those leaks, but I think I still have maybe one or maybe two at the rear. So I'm just going to lift the car up and check for that, and if it leaks, then fix it and then pump it back up, because other than that, it seems to hold up pretty nice, and the car rides really extremely comfortable now. Of course, I have only driven it on a private, very short gravel road, but I can feel that this car is something else. But let's try to find that leak. And as expected, I have a slight leak down here. It's really not a lot, but it is something. The other side actually also shows small signs of seepage. So what I'm going to do is to relieve the pressure in the suspension system on both sides, and then take this apart and put some Teflon tape on it, and then I think it will be okay. And then when all that is drained out, I'm going to do the same on the other circuit, and then take off those connectors at the back so I can put on some Teflon tape. So now it is once again riding level and is fully pumped up. So that's good. I hope it will hold the pressure this time. It should do. I think I have all the leaks sorted out now. But I'm going to fire it up and drive it out of here because I cannot do much more on this right now. So I'm going to start it up, and then you can listen to the Tapety engine. But anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for the support I get on Patreon, and see you in the next one. Remember that wire I took off the ignition coil? Because I didn't. Like that. The mic is inside the car, so maybe you cannot hear it, but it is really Tapety. Other than that, it really is sounding nice. Reverse, lights on. See you in the next one.